Welcome to our next session on Instruments for Change. My name is Audale Martin. Let's get right into it. So what did I just start with? 2-5-1 movements. 2-5-1 movements. We ended with 2-5-1 movements last class. I think we ended with 2-5-1 movements. And I started with some 2-5-1 movements. You may hear a lot of stuff. But in essence, you're hearing 2-5-1, then I change the key. 2-5-1, and then 2-5-1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1. Right? So it's just really 2-5-1, and it's like that kind of stuff. But we really want to get these 2-5-1s into our vocabulary because music have a lot of 2-5-1 movements, which is movements in fourths or fifths, depending how you're looking at it. And so it's a good practice. You just isolate your 2-5-1 movements in the different keys and just work them. Just work your 2-5-1s, right? You can set up a structure of moving in fourths. So do your 2-5-1 in C, do your 2-5-1 in F, do your 2-5-1 in B flat, E flat, A flat, E flat, F, D, E. And or do it chromatic, which is moving from C to C sharp to 2-5-1 in C sharp, 2-5 in C, 2-5-1 in C sharp. That's not 2-5-1 in C sharp. 2-5-1 and then 2-5-1 in D, in E flat, and E. You can do it in. So this is chromatic in F, F sharp, G, G or A flat. Yeah, G. A flat, G, A flat, in A, in B flat, and so forth. You just slowly move them around. But for today's class, we'll be looking back at the 2-5-1s and on our seventh chords, but we'll also be going a little bit more in depth as to what note is important in your chord, what note can be omitted, sometimes you don't want to play a full chord. Sometimes a full chord is not necessarily what you need to play. It's just a part of the chord. And dissecting the chords may help us to understand their structure and how they move in and out of keys and all of that kind of thing, or just being able to figure out things quicker just through the understanding of what 7 chords are, or 2-5-1 movements, whatever it is. So we'll start with some finger exercises. I like to start with this hand-on exercise. Let me slow it down so you see the note C. We don't go up in a sequence of linear sequence. But we skip the second note in the scale, move to the third note, but using the second finger in both hands and continuing up the scale, coming back down, now heading to D, and then up to F, skipping E, and we'll continue like that right up the scale. Alright? And we do it in different scales, real slow, not like me, but real slow, or slower. I'm in C sharp now. And you should use a metronome to help you to get really steady. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. If you notice, I accent where 1 is. So let's go back to C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So it'll be like that. So it's a good exercise to, while you're practicing the finger movements and your fingers getting used to skipping that note, you also practice what we call accents. So you just accent that first note and get soft on the others. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. And it helps you to feel the pulse stronger. So you want to practice in a way that helps you to feel music. Another thing are arpeggios. We didn't speak about them that much. There will be a class, I'm sure there will be a session where we just talk about finger exercise and arpeggios, but an arpeggio is simply a broken chord, a solid C major chord, C, E, G, right? C, E, G, and we know the fingering for that chord is 1, finger 3, finger 5. But when we're playing an arpeggio, which is broken, and we're going up the keyboard and coming back down, it's finger 1, finger 2, and finger 3. I mean, you could use finger 1, 3, and 5, but finger 1, finger 2, finger 3. That's a slower. Finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, finger 1, 2, finger 3, finger 1, finger 2, finger 3. When you're finishing, you use that pinky to finish. Pinky, finger 3, finger 2, finger 1, finger 3, finger 2, finger 1, finger 3, finger 2, finger 1. And it just giving back a wide shot. So if you notice, my hand movement is, that kind of, it gives you a little more freedom to, take the tension off this section of the hand right here. So when you see a lot of musicians and they behave all kind of way and all kind of thing around the instrument, it's not for show, it is to help to get the tension off of a certain section of the hand. Sometimes when I'm playing some stuff and I feel the tension, I like just ease my hand to a certain, place, and or just try to even my body a certain way and it get the tension off. Or I just put down that hand and do what I'm doing. Literally just rest the hand, and when I'm ready for that hand. So we do the exercises. So we do these exercises to help us feel and master our own self. Not necessarily the instrument, what yourself you're really mastering, right? And you feel, because the instrument already know all what it need to know. And you need to know what the instrument can do, right? So we're feeling through, and you feel your arm to see where it is going. But you're doing this not as very slow, and feel where the tension is. If we're not willing to do all that kind of work, we won't really get to that place where we want to get. All right, so that's arpeggios. So here's the arpeggio, same fingering. Let me see, E flat. The fingering is a little bit different. Finger 2 on the E flat, finger 1 on G, finger 2 again on B flat, and then finger 4, and then we go on the line. So just look at that real slow. E flat, G, B flat, E flat, G. A flat is the same fingering. Finger 4, then 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2. E flat. Same fingering. E flat. E flat. Alright, same fingering. Now we just practice our arpeggios real slow, not nowhere as fast as that, but real slow. That's what practicing is. I wasn't practicing just now. Just showing you what I would practice to get finger dexterity and independence and coordination and all of that kind of thing. All right, but for today's class, getting in today's class, we're going right into the 7 chords where we left off along the 2-5-1s. But today we'll be looking on something inside these chords called shell voicings. And shell voicing is basically omitting some notes and just playing the more important notes, right? So here's a C major 7 chord. C, G, B, E, right? C, G, B, E. Right away off the bat, I can tell you can omit the 5th. And it will still sound like the chord you need to play. If you play the 5th, here, there's a 5th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's a 5th. Just omit fifth, and you can still play the chord. It will, but let's say you omit the seventh, you won't get that. It doesn't sound like, it just sounds like a normal C major chord. Hear that? And if you omit the third, you can't tell if the chord is major or minor, because here's a C major, but if I minor it, sounds really different. C minor major 7. I think I spoke about that chord last session. And here's C major 7. Right? So the more important notes, the root, the third, and the seventh, right? And you voice it like this. So C here, here's the seventh, and then here's the third. You can play a whole song just using third and root, third and root, third, seventh, right? And let's just play the full normal structure that we know, C, E, G, B, and just move those chords up in the C major scale, and then we'll check the shell voicings and hear the difference. I'll break them up. And hear the shell voicings now. And you can, well, shell voicing is really nice. A really nice song. And you can play a whole song. We can go as it there. If you notice, there's just 2 notes in my right hand and 1 note in my left hand. We'll have to go back to the 1 here because the melody is at the 1 and not the 7. Let's go to the chorus. That note there. Shell voicings, really nice. F to G, F to C. And if I play the full chord, it'll be F major 7 to C major 7. But I'm just using shell voicings, which is the root, the 7th, and the 3rd of the note that you're playing. So F, you're going to find the 7th of F and the 3rd. Or you can turn it around, have the 3rd and the 7th here. That's a nice sound. Nice sound, but some persons may prefer this. I don't really have a problem with either. You can alternate between the two, which is having the 7th close. You have that dissonant sound here between F and E, because we know F and E are semitones apart. F and E semitones apart, right? Here it is right there. We'll put the F down here, and so it still give it a little, mosquito type sound, like a mosquito nenge sound. And here's a 3rd here, but you can turn it in such a way where the lowest distance between the 2 lowest notes, in this case F and E, is not happening, but you can have an A instead here. Can I just get a shot there on the keyboard so they can see that, right? So if you turn it this way, you may, get rid of the dissonance that way, meaning F, A, E as opposed to F, E, A. But it's still a nice dissonant sound, But if you have a in comparison to the lowest note in the bass, making this this position here, F to A, a third or a tenth in a compound interval. We spoke about compound intervals, and I have the seventh here. It sounds more pleasant as opposed to, right? So, and that's a thing to note with shell voicings, at least major sevenths, that is. And then there are some songs like, let me see. Can't think of a song now. But if I'm just moving like a little churchy kind of thing, I'm playing full chords. But if I use shell voicings, which won't be major sevenths this time, but some type of seventh, shell voicings. And sometimes I'm playing shell voicings in my hand alone, which is the third and the seventh, while the bass player probably playing that bass down there, and so your right hand rather is free to do. But we're not ready for that yet. Some persons may know what I'm speaking of, but we're not really ready right now. Just now, we have some more stuff to go through. So shell voicings are really important, is what I'm trying to say, and to really get the hang of it, so the mind, the brain can come off this habit of just playing. You play a bass note with a chord. Now what, leave down right here, or here go back to your bass player, and you have all up here to yourself, right? So you don't want to trouble the bass frequency. But until then, right? All right, so those are shell voicings, and again, it's just taking the root, the seventh of the chord, and the third, and that's the chord right there, which is now it's like a triad, but it's not really a triad because it's a seven. I mean, you're playing three notes triad, but it's still a seventh chord, and so you can just take this and move it up within the scale, right? So however you start, you just move within your scale like that. So if you start with the seventh and the third, you can change it now to the third and the seventh, up like this. Right, and then you can add back the notes you took out, like the C here and G. But the major chord, the major notes are the root, which is 1, the seventh, and the third. However you want to invert those notes. And look at it. Here's a fourth there. B to E is a fourth in terms of the interval distance, absolute, which is B, C sharp, D as a fourth. But when you turn it around and put B up here, interval change from a fourth to a fifth. I remember speaking about this in a session before. Right? So what was a fourth? When you invert it, becomes a fifth. What was a seventh? What was a second? Once you invert it, becomes a seventh. Second becomes 7. And that interval is an important interval to playing in your left hand. Since we're still talking about shell voicing, let's talk about that left hand. Sometimes I'll play like, if I'm playing a C major chord, C major 7 chord, I'll play like the B, C to B, and just have that interval right there. And just have like a E minor chord. Reason why I'm saying this is because we spoke about it last week, where I was saying an E minor chord added with a C. Can you just show me? Right, thank you. E minor chord with a C. Here's C and here's E minor, and that C plus that give you, it's a whole C major 7 chord, C major 7. But if you should dissect the chord, you can see that it's a E minor chord, E, G, B, and then C, which is a C major chord right there. C major chord right there. I'm coming up to a break shortly, but that's a C major chord. Here's a F major chord. It have an A minor chord right there. A, C, E. Here's A major. Here's C, E, and here's a F. Right? All right, so I have to take a break just now, and I'll be back with you shortly.
The point of wearing a mask is to prevent the spread of air droplets from persons who may or may not be infected. When wearing a mask, please ensure that the mask goes above the nose and below the chin. This might be a bit uncomfortable, but it's for your own safety. The position of the mask is very important. It should not be worn on your forehead, under your chin, or on your neck. Please do not remove the mask when speaking. This actually causes more droplets to be released into the atmosphere. Trust me, if you have on a mask, we will still hear you. When you're removing a mask, try not to touch the front of the mask. If you do, remember to wash your hands or use hand sanitizer. Please throw away the mask appropriately. Remember, partial protection is better than no protection.
All right, so we're back, and where were we? Right, so I was saying, from the last session, we were talking about how chords intermix. So I said a C and an E minor chord, or you can look at it as a C major chord and an E minor mix in one. They kind of they mix, you know, they mix up away. They kind of mix up away, you know. And here's F. Here's a F chord, and then here's a A minor chord, and we'll call it, you know, almost like polychord. It's not fully poly yet because the chords mingle up into one, but a polychord would be like a C over a D, meaning completely two different chords, right? Two different chords, you know, that would. Two different chords coming together. Let me see. Two different chords. That's poly, but we're almost kind of, you know, touching on a little polychord when you say a F major 7, because it's a F chord and an A minor is mixing it somewhere and it gives you that F major 7, right? So this is good to know information, because when you start building bigger chords, it really means two chords or probably three chords coming together to give you one new chord, right? And then you give it a big name, C13, sharp 11, flat 9, whatever you call it. So that's where we are now. And everything that you do, you can do 2-5-1s with your shell voicings as well. And it's just simple moving thirds and sevenths. I want to stick there for a little bit. Moving thirds and sevenths and ensuring that we understand why this here and that there. So let's just look at the 2-5-1s using shell voicings. So let's just look, before we do that, let's look at 2-5-1 with the major chord, just the full 4-note chord. So here's a D minor chord, D minor. D minor is 2 in C. So it's a D minor chord, D, F, A, C, right? Let's go to D triad, D minor triad first. D minor to G, and then to C. And I'm using inversions. We know what that is by now. The root position D, second inversion G, first inversion C, right? But if we're going to use 7 chords, it sounds like 2, 5, 1, right? Which is D minor 7, G dominant 7. We spoke about that dominant 7 last week, and C major 7, right? But if we're using shell voicings, it's going to look like this, where we can, we'll start this way. D, so let's just look at what the shell voicing would be. We're omitting the 5th, right? And that way we're left with the root, the 3rd, and the 7th of the chord, right? And this is based off a C major scale right now, but it's not necessarily the 3rd of C major scale, but it's the distance between D to F that gives you that 3rd. Assuming D to be some temporary one, D is 1, E is 2, F is 3, but we're doing it in the context of a C major scale. So this is a 3rd, interval of a 3rd, and then D to C is an interval of a 7th, right? So that's your 2 in C, omitting that 5th, and then you have the shell voicing. But what you can do, just put this here in your bass, and that's your full chord. And you can invert the C down here, right? So what I want you to notice here is how 3rd and 7th move right? So when I go to the 2, I'm at the 2 right now. Here's the 7th of the chord. Here's the 3rd. Now I'm going to go to the 5, which is G, right? A G, B, D chord with a F dominant 7. So 2, 5. What happened right here? So let's just notice the notes that stay. F stays here when I move to the G, and the C drops to a B. Listen to how it wants to move. It's like it's suspended and wants to fall. But the F stays. We'll call any note that remains the same, we'll call it a common tone. Really important concept, a common tone. Common tone make music real nice. So D, C, F, and the 7th of the D minor 7th chord moves down to the 3rd of the G chord. So in a 2-5 movement, once you move from the 2, which the 7th interval, when you move it up or down, it should go to the 3rd, right? And the dominant 7th will stay, and then here we are now to 1. You move from the F, falls down to the and the 3rd stays. The 3rd stays as the major 7. Right, so here it is again. 2. And you hear that wanting to fall down too. And it still remains, and the dominant 7 from the G moves down. You put it in the next voicing where you put the C at the top, but it's still the 7th of D. And when you go to that G, the B comes down to the 3rd. Right? And so 2, 5, 1 is the 7th and the 3rd. They're right beside each other in terms of how they move. It's like they move in a chromatic movement. Right? Let's play through. Right? Let's just look at what I just did right there. It really gives you the idea of the 3rd and the 7th moving. Right? So here is a C dominant chord, or C7, C dominant 7th. And it's simply, I spoke about this chord, but let's speak about it again. And it's simply where we have a triad, a major triad. Can I get a view of this right here, please? A major triad moving to a dominant. And I need the next view, people. But not there on the board. Hello? I can't move on till I go to the next view, so I can show the viewers. All right, I'm going in 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So here's a C dominant 7 and C, E, G. Here's a C major 7. I flatten the major 7 to a flatted 7, right? And this note is not necessarily in the key of C, right? But all these notes can be found in the key of F, right? And this so happened that this is the 5 chord in F, which goes like this: 5 going to 1, 5, 1, right? Let's look at what that looks like in C. G is the 5, and you add that dominant 7. So the dominant 7 is not a major G major 7. It's a flatted 7, and it remained in the key that you're in. But so I was saying about the C dominant 7th, I'm going to omit the notes that I don't need, which is the 5th, and turn it into a shell voicing. And I just omit the C right here, omit the C because I have a C here, and I omit the 5th. And so I'm left with the 3rd and the dominant 7, which is now a C dominant 7. You're a C major 7, C dominant 7. Right? And then here is C dominant 7, as I'm saying. And as I move to a F, C going to F, C going to F. So I'm assuming C to be 2. If C is 2, F is 5, I'm in the key of B flat. So it's like a 2-5-1 to B flat. But that's not my point right now. My point is the third here, which is the third of C, and here's the dominant 7th. When I move to F, this comes down to the dominant, the flatted 7th of F. And then the third of F is here. So when it was at C, the 7th is here. And when I move to F, the third of F is right here now. Look at it again. Here's the third of C, and it moves down to the flatted 7th of F, giving you the dominant 7th. And if you notice what's happening in my left hand, it's moving in a 2-5-1 movement, but it's called a circle of fourth as well. So the bass notes are moving in fourths. Right, they're moving in thirds, fourths, right? But these here are moving in semitones, and they naturally turn out to be third and sevenths, moving around. You can hear that it's the same quality of chords moving, right? And so that's what I was using just now when I was playing a little. Which is just a C dominant 7 going to a F dominant 7 in a shell voicing. I just invert it. But the full chord will be at a full dominant 7. C dominant 7 going to F dominant 7. That's an inversion. And I use the shell voicing. One thing to note, the shell voicings don't sound as full, but you can still play the entire piece, just the shell voicings. It's still the same chord, right? But when you add the other notes, you get the full. Why I sound like that? I'm just moving, I'm just giving a little flam sound from the, I'm playing, it's like you're playing a C major triad and you're just kind of flamming from the E flat to the E like. And give it a little singing or flexible, you know, like sounds really, music sounds really more, you know, lively and alive. So you can just check out the dominant 7s or any 7th chord and just find the shell voicings. And you can just practice minor shell voicings, like minor 7s. So you take a D minor triad, and you omit the chords and notes you need to omit, D, F, A. And you move them around, you omit the A, which is the 5th, and you just move them around. Get used to what it looks like for D, what it looks like for E. Right? There are two ways to play that, just by inverting and putting the note up here in D, moving from here going up here. Let me see. So just shell voicings. Just practice moving them around so you get used to them. And you can try dominant 7s as well. Dominant 7 shell voicing, as I did earlier. And if you move them in, alright, we're not ready for tritone substitutions yet. Right? Or you practice them within the scale. I don't have to do it in C major scale alone, do it in D. Or in C sharp. E. You may not know them right away, but just feel them through. So once you find the position, just keep that position right through. Just follow through with it, I'm saying then. If you don't want to take the time, you should really take the time to look at an E major 7 based on an E major scale. Find the root, the 3rd, the 7th, and the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th. And omit what you need to omit, which is the 5th. And then you can play the bass down here. Right? Or you can invert this D sharp down here. Right? And if you need to go to the F minus 7, F sharp minus 7 in the E, and you omit the chords, you omit the notes. So once you find that 7th chord with a dominant, minor, dominant 7, major 7th, or minor 7th, could even be a diminished 7 for those who know what a diminished 7th is, and just omit the 5th, and you can just bring the bass note down, and that there you have your shell voicings to practice with. All right? So last week we were looking at the song as there, and I think I played it through earlier. But just now using the 2-5-1s, So there's a next thing that gospel musicians like to talk about. It's a 7-3-6, which is really a 2-5-1 movement, but in a minor key, or going home to minor, assuming a minor to be the 1 instead of a major. But for a shortcut way of speaking, we want to stay within the context of, we don't want to say 2-5-1 in A when we can say 7-3-6 in C. So let me just explain what that is. Here is the key A, here's the note A, right? And here's A minor scale, which is all the notes of C minor, C major scale, clearly because it's strictly white keys. Strictly white keys, right? A minor scale, but it's 2 here. Here's 2. 2, assuming A to be 1. Here's 2. What would be 5 away from A? We can check the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E. That would be E. So B would be 2, E would be 5, A would be 1. Right? And that's what they're saying. But if I do it in context of C, in the key of C, B is 7 and E is 3 and A is 6. So because we don't want to say, let's say we're talking to the bass player, keyboard is talking to the bass player, we don't want to say play a 2-5-1 in A, we just want to say 7-3-6 in C. As the, say 2-5-1 A, it's kind of hard to analyze that real quick. You're going to think A even though you're in C. Right, so you just want to say 7-3-6, but just know it's a 2-5-1 movement. Here the 2-5-1, 1, as the there. Still a 2-5-1 sound, right? 2-5-1. That's a 2-5-1 to F. But in C, we just say 5-1-4. Right? But some musicians just say 2-5-1, and the other musicians will just know are doing a turnaround. Sometimes the 2-5-1 will call it a turnaround, which is not really the right term, but still do it nevertheless. As the 7-3-6, which is really 2-5-1 to A, and here's 2-5-1 to F. Right, so it's as the right, and we could add an next 2-5-1 in there. That right there. That's a lot of 2-5-1, but I'm in the key of C nevertheless, using shell voicings. So let's look at the bass notes. As the B, E, A. I'm gonna say that's a 2-5-1 to A. And in the key of C, it's a 7-3-6, right? And then I'm going to do what I want to reach to G. So let's do a 2-5-1 to G, because as the deer panted for the water, because it end up going to G anyway. So why not do a 2-5-1 to G, right? So then you'd have to know your G major scale, and you'd have to be pretty good with your scales to know. So as the here's 2 of G, which is a A. G is 1, A is 2, alphabetical order, G, A, B, C, D, E. So E would be 6. So, I'm sorry, 5, D. As the day 5 1 of G, and then with the 2 5 1 of F. So you turn at G. So once you reach to the G, just assume the G to be a new 2, which is 2 of F. So as we're going to A. So it's 2 5 1, but really 7 3 6 2 5 1 of A. Here is 2 5 1 of G, and here is 2 5 1 of F. But in time, you don't really double the note again. So it's as the planted by the waters, oh my. You don't need to do this while you're playing the song. You actually don't need to do this, but it's just to get the exercise of 2 5 1s within the key, right? So, using shell voicing. When I hear that movement, it's some type of 2 5 1. Two 5 1s. All right, let me just take a break right here, and we'll be back shortly.
Aren't you tired of being the last person to view our content whenever we post? Maybe 3 days or perhaps a week later? Trust me, I know the feeling. That's why I'm here to help you fix that problem. By subscribing to our YouTube channel, it enables a notification feature that sends you a personal notification whenever EJC Virtual Church goes live. Yeah, that's cool, I know. Ready? Let's go. Now, firstly, what you want to ensure is that you are signed into your YouTube via your Gmail account. And then when you've gotten onto one of our videos, below that video you should see the word subscribe in red. You tap that word, and then a bell should come up beside it. You hit that bell and select all to get all our notifications for all our content that we post right here on our EJC Virtual Church YouTube channel. Yep, it's as easy as pie. So right now you'll receive notifications whenever it's time for a new beginning. Mind Your Health, Youth Mission Live, Oh Give Thanks, Instruments for Change, and on Sabbaths or regular worship service. Remember, if you don't do it, the rocks will. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your family members, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you will surely receive a blessing from these programs.
So I did a lot of 2 5 1 movements there. In a song, you don't necessarily have to do so many 2 5 1 movements. Some people will do it. I don't necessarily think you need to do it. It depends on how your singer is singing. You know how much movements to use. And 2 5 1 is not the only type of, you can use all kind of, but 2 5 1 is a very good place, and it's the root place to start. Understanding 2 5 1 will help you to understand anything else in music. So if you need to repeat the session over and over and over again to understand the 2 5 1s, and I was using shell voicing, so let me just use chords, full chords. As the hear that circle? Here's the next circle. 2 5 1s. To you. Where am I? Lost myself. And that will happen if you're using too much 2 5 1s or too much movements. You may lose yourself if you're not really focused. Strength. That's where I am. So if I did 2, 5, 1 to the 4, and I long to worship you. Let me see it. Right. And so forth, whatever. But it's a good exercise just to practice using two. So if you're in C and you want to get to a D minor chord, right? All you do is assume D as a temporary one, and you play the note that would be 2, the interval which is a distance of a second away, and then the interval which is a fifth away, and then you go back to the 2. So you're playing 2, 5, 1 off the 2. If that make any sense, right? So if I want to reach to a D minor chord, and I want to go D minor 7, I can go. Right, I did a 2, 5, 1. And a simple, right? Shell voicings will look like. So it's C major 7, G minor 7, E minor 7, A minor 7, F minor 7. Sorry, D minor 7. C major 7, E minor 7, A minor 7, F minor 7 with shell voicings. With a full chord. Right, that's a F minor and D minor 9. F minor D7, D minor 7. Right, so, and you can practice it going to the 3 now. Going to the, alright, here's an interesting one, going to the 3. Let's say I want to go to the 3, right? Just show them this for me. The 3 is E. The 3 is E in C, right? But we want to go to the, we want to do a 2, 5, 1 to this E. But what's the 2 of E? F sharp. And now we're out of the key just for a moment. And then here's a B, which is in the key of C, but it's 5 of E, and then, so let's check it. I'm going to do a 2, 5, 1 to A, to D, sorry. 2, 5, 1. Here's a 2, 5, 1 of E. You can hear that first movement there is out of the key. Kind of comes back. Comes right back, right? So many songs have that movement where they want to get to the 3. A lot of gospel songs have that movement. Or a lot of songs where they want to head to the 3 and they do a 2, 5, 1 to the 3. But the 2 is naturally out of the key. But it doesn't matter. It works nicely. It doesn't matter. So let's say I want to go to the 3, which is E minor 7. But I'll do I must find a song that have in that part. Let me see. Does Mercy said no about that? I was wrong, I could not understand. No, I can't find a song right now. But there are many songs that have that 2, 5, 1 to the 3, and it gives you a whole different sound, right? I'm sure I remember one before we're finished here. So that's pretty much where we are for this session. I think that's a lot. It's a lot, so I can't go any further than that right now. And if we get a hold of how to use these shell voicings, then it would really do us some good in terms of understanding chords. And you can do shell voicings for for triads, right? Where you just omit the 5th is really just an interval. That really is an interval. So a C major chord and you omit the 5th, right? It really do. We're not going to call it shell voicing. It's just, right? But still. And then there are ways to use the shell voicing in such a way that it becomes a melody. For example, if I'm playing so if I'm doing right? You can move them around like melodies, even though I'm in the progression. Right? Move them around as melodies. And it's easy to do that because it's just a shell voicing where you can move stuff like you're in a scale. You're just moving around these shell voicings. But you really have to practice them till they are, you know, you really have them under your fingers. So when you say E major 7, when you say E major 7, E major 7, and you're talking about the shell voicing, you should be can just do like that, right? Which is the 3rd and the 7th. F major 7, B flat major 7, G sharp major 7, B major 7. Or you can do it with dominant 7, C dominant 7, G flat dominant 7, F dominant 7, B dominant 7, D dominant. You're supposed to can just move them around as if you do like a C major chord, F major chord, B flat chord, D chord. You're supposed to can move around anything at all. Right? So if when you reach big chords, C dominant, let me see, C sharp 11, A flat sharp 11, B flat sharp 11, E flat sharp 11, G sharp 11, D sharp 11, F sharp sharp 11. Any set of chords you're supposed. So you practice the things until you know them anywhere at all with no. Let me see. So I'm in the key of C. And here's my C major scale, so this is my third. No, we want to get past that, which is to practice. You have to practice, so the mind really remember the brain really remember what the patterns look like and the shape of chords. Shape of chords are really important to remember. So this is not always to learn, you know, like trying to figure out while you're playing. I'm not figuring anything out while I'm playing. I'm playing what I already practiced and then use it in creative ways to do whatever, right? And you, as I said, what we did today is can bring you right throughout the year. And if you listen to a lot of songs, you'll realize that this is fundamental to any type of song, no matter how complex a song may sound. You know, gospel have some songs that sound really complex, but this is, if you understand these basic concepts, it brings you a far way. And so we're now at the end. At the end of our session. Remember to subscribe and share, and we will see you at the next session.
Join us tomorrow evening for Oh Give Thanks with Pastor Michael Lewis and the dynamic team. We look forward to seeing you at 7:30 p.m. sharp. A blessing awaits you.